Good evening. My name is Mrs. Sparks. I'm Director of Science, and this evening I'd like to give you a brief guide of what you can do to revise or you can do to support your son and daughter through their science GCSEs. To begin with, I'd like to introduce you to this chap, Hermann Ebbinghaus, and the forgetting curve. So, through experimentation, Ebbinghaus essentially showed that we rapidly forget a lot of what we learn from when we are first introduced to it. So our aim of revision and independent study should be to reduce the rate at which we forget things. We want to put in place tactics that enable us to beat the curve, so to speak. So the question is, how do we do this? What works and what doesn't? So the evidence shows that some of our most common and favourite revision techniques are in actual fact the most ineffective. Students like these approaches because they sit well within their comfort zones. So for example, highlighting. Lots of students enjoy highlighting, and rereading. Now the students like this and these approaches because they sit well within their comfort zones. They help students feel like they're familiar with the material, but the trouble is they don't really work. We need to find a better way of studying. So the evidence shows really that the most effective ways of learning material are practice testing and distributed practice. The trouble with both of these though is that they often feel hard and uncomfortable for students because they're getting students to try and recall and remember facts, explanations and techniques. Students have to work a lot harder using these techniques rather than just recognise whether something is familiar or not. Because they feel harder, students find it harder to engage in them, but they are the most effective ways of studying and highly recommended. So going back to the forgetting curve, this slide shows us how these techniques can be so effective. If we space out our revision and build in opportunities to repeat the content we are learning tomorrow, next week, and next month, and so on, we can go some way to beating the forgetting curve. And as this illustration shows, I can spend less time on the topic each time I revisit it. The more frequently we practice something, the less time we need to spend on it. There are a couple of other revision techniques or study techniques that are worth explaining too. Elaborative interrogation and self-explanation help students use the ideas that they've learned and and give them an opportunity to rehearse how they would explain things. And that's really, really valuable. In that rehearsal, what they are doing is practicing over and over and over again using the knowledge that they've gained. So with elaborative interrogation, you can ask your student, your son or your daughter, lots of questions about a topic, getting deeper and deeper into the content. For example, you might say to them, what topic have you been studying today? They might say, oh, electromagnetic spectrum, and you can just start really simply, what is that? And then take the questions further and deeper. Say, why are they relevant to us, for example? So what is gamma radiation? Is that safe or is it dangerous? And by you taking control of the questioning process in a low threat manner, it gives students the opportunities to sort their ideas out. And they can always use their revision cards or their revision guides to help them with that. By using self-explanation, students can do this for themselves. And in a way, if they do this and they write it down, they can explain these ideas and again rehearse them over and over again. In both of these instances, it is important for students to use their revision resources, be that the cue cards that they've written or the revision guides that they've got, to help them check whether what they've said or written is correct, or whether they've missed anything out that's important. So other techniques that students can use which will support the retrieval practice and practice questions are cue cards. So most students know what cue card is. You've got a piece of paper, and on one side you maybe got a topic title and a number of questions, and then on the other side you've got all the answers. But I'd like to encourage students to go much further with their use of cue cards. What they can do is pick 2 cards from one topic and write down all the different ways that they can connect the topics. They can pick 1 card and write down all the detail they can about that topic, but go beyond just the simple factual recall that might be on the back of the card. They can mix up all their cue cards and then see if they can find connections between different areas of their subject, even, what the connections between physics and geography may be, or history and biology, for example. I don't know. The other thing that students can do is take 2 cards and they can explain how the different topics or ideas are different from each other. For example, compare and contrast plant and animal cells. What's the difference between longitudinal and transverse waves? Can they label all the appropriate diagrams? Things like that. Then, just moving on. Oh, sorry. What we can do with the revision cards, as I said previously, it's always really important to check what you're getting right and what you're getting wrong. I could talk about one particular science topic, and then I would need to check that there wasn't anything that I'd missed out or any misunderstandings that I might have spoken about. And it's really important, and all the teachers in the science department are here to support students. So if they've done a revision session and they really still don't understand it, I would always say to the students, please, please, please go and speak to your teachers. They will be more than happy to work with you on a one-to-one basis in your break time or lunchtime and go through a topic. So sources of practice questions, this is really important, and this is the kind of retrieval practice that we spoke about earlier. By repeatedly practicing similar questions, the students will get much better at answering them. This is another type of rehearsal, really. As the students get better at this, they free up working memory space, which enables them to take on much, much more challenging problems in an exam. So good sources of questions for students will be the course specifications, past exam papers, test yourself questions, which I've got a huge load of resources for in school, SLOP, which we call shed loads of practice, where we've got the same question over and over and over again, and friends and family are also a source of questions. So ask your son or your daughter to tell you all about their subject that they're studying and ask those questions again. So finally, it is true that time and effort means success. However, I would like students to learn to become very savvy about how they study. All the way through their science lessons at school, we've encouraged students to reflect on their strengths and weaknesses at the end of a topic. And students need to make sure that they are consistently focusing their efforts on the areas that they find hardest. This is difficult to do because, like I spoke about earlier, it feels hard, and students much prefer to study a topic that they find easy because it's really reaffirming, makes them feel confident, and happy that everything is on course, and they kind of subtly avoid doing the things that they find difficult. But doing the things students find difficult is by far the best way of spending their time. Mock exams are coming up at the beginning of November, and students need to use that as a way of finding out where they need to focus their efforts after Christmas. It's really difficult for students to do everything, but by making sure and supporting students to spend their time wisely, we can make sure they make the most of how they spend their time studying. So just one last thing, most students now have got revision guides and workbooks. However, if you haven't, they are available to order through school on parent mail at all times. We generally hold a stock in school, and please feel free to buy them off parent mail. Thank you.